Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The Movie Podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We have a fantastic show this week with 4 brand new reviews, including an early review of SKINAMARINK that's due to hit the Shudder streaming platform early February. This week on the show, Nobody Is Who They Seem, including your own mother, in the new thriller Missing. Best friends go to a secluded cabin in the middle of the pandemic in the new Peacock original slasher film Sick. Another heartfelt story of a family searching for their dog, but this time it's with Rob Lowe in the Netflix original Dog Gone. And streaming exclusively on Shudder next month is a movie I have no idea how to summarize in just a single sentence is a new Shudder original SKINAMARINK. We have a lot to cover this week, so let's get right into it.
Out of the windows, what? A roar and a bursting of flames. The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is.
We just need people like me.
Podcast for hot and trending movies. The Wire.
And here we go.
Based on the true story of a father and son who repair their fractured relationship during a forced hike of the Appalachian Trail to find their beloved lost dog in the new Netflix original Dog Gone.
Fielding!
Yes, sir?
The dog's just sitting here whining.
He wants to play fetch.
All right.
Go get it. He needs to choose the stick.
He needs to choose. Really?
Gonker isn't any dog.
He's my best friend.
Everyone needs one soul who loves you because you are you. That's who Gonker was for me. And now he's lost. Gonker!
I promise you we will find that dog.
You promise? How can you say that?
Because I believe it.
He's only got 2 weeks. He's no medication, nothing.
You and I are heading the Appalachian Trail. All right, here we go. I was wondering if any of you gentlemen had possibly seen our missing dog. His name is Gonker.
That's a stupid name. I gave my dog a stupid name once. Macaroni.
I'd like to write an article about your search.
People are reaching out from all over the world.
We had heard about Gonker on the news.
Help the marshals find their boy.
No pets over 15 pounds.
Put the coat around me.
What is this, Scooby-Doo?
Come on.
Thanks for doing this.
We will find that dog.
Why won't you stop saying that?
Because I believe it.
It's like you two are on an epic journey together.
Like a quest.
An epic quest. Like a vision quest.
No?
Based on the book Dog Gone, A Lost Pet's Extraordinary Journey and the Family That Brought Him Home by Paul Tanangi from 2016 and adapted to screen by Nick Santora, comes the heartfelt tale of a love a boy has for his dog. Now, this must have been a challenge for writer Santora. He is more known for some pretty rugged projects such as TV shows Prison Break, Law & Order, Vegas, The Sopranos, and the film Punisher: Warzone. This is a writing credit out of his norm, and at times it can really break through to show some faults in the dialogue of pain and emotion that this family went through. But then we have times that Santora shows sparks of heart as well. And even though the sparks do seem generically written, these moments still tend to either bring a smile to her face or pure sadness. But the dialogue is also supported in due to part to an outstanding cast and a director that knows how to dive into different peaks of emotion to his character direction to ensure that we get a mix of emotional reactions. The film was directed by Stefan Herrick, who might not be a a household name, but his movies are. He has directed such films as 1986 Critters, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, The Mighty Ducks, 101 Dalmatians, and a personal favorite, Mr. Holland's Opus. Now, Netflix seems to be flooding their streaming platform with movies about our pets, with more recent films such as Rescued by Ruby and a remake of Benji. Audiences and viewers must be showing Netflix how much they love watching dog movies. And who isn't a sucker for these movies? Dog movies have evolved with audiences. If we look back at the movies from the 60s to the 90s, we had a common theme of filmmakers putting animals in peril to a lot of the times, with our beloved dog dying at the end. Now, this is a trend that changed over the years as audiences changed. Whenever I put a dog movie on, the most common question I get is, does the dog die? If so, I don't want to watch it if the dog dies. This has been indented into those that have grown up with dog films from the past. Studios have realized that people want inspirational dog movies, not movies that kill off the most lovable character of the movie. Old Yeller is the one to thank for that trend. Doggone, I wish I could say has a uniqueness to it, but it really doesn't, even if it is based on a true story. The film adaptation makes it into a movie that we have seen time and time again, but just because we have seen it before doesn't mean it doesn't have its heart in the right place. The movie stars Rob Lowe and Kimberly Williams Paisley as John and Ginny Marshall, the parents of Fielding, played by Johnny Birchtold, the owner of our Golden Retriever mix, and the true star of the film, Gonker. We are introduced to a very stern father figure played by Lowe that finds faults in everything Fielding does, and this is where our writer Nick Santura, you can tell, feels the most comfortable from his TV writing days. The character is adapted and written perfectly, as well as casted with the performance of Lowe, who isn't over the top and subtle in his sarcastic, passive-aggressive lines towards his son, in acknowledging the way that he doesn't know how to communicate with Fielding. Now, between Lowe and Paisley, while they're on screen with Fielding, the chemistry is quite nice and they bounce off each other and balance nicely. But the biggest thing missing is the chemistry between Lowe and Paisley. We never really see them as a relatable couple together. At times, I was just waiting for the divorce card to come out at some point. The two look miserable as a couple, and that feeling really doesn't lead to anywhere in the movie. It's just played as a missed detail in the film. The balance of the family relationship does come across artificial and forced throughout the entire movie, and I don't blame the cast here rather than the adaptation. And at times it can seem a little too subtle, and then 5 minutes later it is way over the top. The balance is all over the place, but as expected, what really holds the movie together is Gonker the dog. He has the most realistic and most well-balanced performance of the film, and for those wondering, he is absolutely adorable. Of course, Fielding's dad is against having the animal until he warms up to him, and just like every other dog movie, the family grows to love him as one of their own. But Fielding raises Gonker and feels he knows his dog. That is, until Gonker's animal instincts gets him lost on the trail. Fielding and his dad go on the search for Gonker with seeking help from the community, news outlets, and fellow hikers. During this journey, one would think we would see a relationship start to rebuild between Fielding and his dad, but when they are on screen together alone, this really doesn't blossom. The supporting cast and the situations really build their relationship, but once the situation or interaction with the supporting characters end, so does the build between the two. There is nothing sustainable when they are together alone. What really holds this movie together is the hope for Gonker, the situations that the family faces while on the search, but there is real no depth to the actual human characters at all. Doggone does exactly what it sets out to do. It gives another dog movie the cute factor, the hope factor, and the forced emotional climax. There is not a lot here to separate itself from the rest, but in all fairness, it doesn't try to be something that it's not. It knows exactly what it wants to be, what it wants you to feel, and at the end of the day, is it successful in this? The answer is yes. Doggone is nothing special, but it will bring a smile, a laugh, and a tear to your eye by the time the credits roll. I'm giving Doggone 2.5 stars. Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews on previous episodes for movies that are available to rent, buy, or stream now. Now available, wonderful surprises await you when you visit the Ralph Fiennes exclusive restaurant in The Menu, which served its way to 3 stars. Friendship has evolved, and she's more than a friend, she's family. Well, that's before she starts killing people. and the new thriller horror movie Megan that received a playful 3 stars. The sequel to 2019's murder mystery brings the fun in another whodunit, The Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery which solved the mystery to bring a 3-star review. Say hola to his little friends in the sequel to the 2011 animated film Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which wished its way to 3 stars. And finally, one of my favorite films of the year and now a Golden Globe winner and multiple nominations for the Academy Awards this year. And that's The Banshee of Inisherin, which received a perfect 4 stars. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. And make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And don't forget to tune in to episode 54 of the show, where I share with you my top 10 most favorite films of 2022. Some will come as a surprise, and those of you that have listened to the show often won't be too shocked on my top couple. Make sure you tune into that. Now, those of you around the Seattle area, it's that time of year again where we have the Snohomish Film Festival coming up. You can submit your film into the festival by going to www.filmfreeway.com/Snohomish Film Festival. It's going to be a great year, and I cannot wait to see your movie. And lastly, as we all know, the Oscar nominations are in, and I always felt awards time is a great opportunity to have an open dialogue about movies, to get different viewpoints, because whatever your opinion is on the Academy Awards ceremony, it is still a fun dialogue to have with the nominations. Some people think Top Gun Maverick should have gotten more nominations, some think Avatar will win Best Picture, and for some that have only seen a handful of these films, they just want to root for what they've seen. So everybody has their favorites, but it's not just Oscar time that's the fun part, it's watching and rooting for a favorite film. And that is why having discussions prior to awards time is so much fun and interesting. So I'm going to do something a little different for this go around. I'm not going to cover just my opinion on the nominations on the show. I'm going to have a conversation, and that conversation is going to be exclusively on the Talking Smack podcast. Once again, the Talking Smack podcast was so kind to ask me onto their show to have this conversation surrounding the nominations. I join Alex once again, where we deep dive into the nominations and give our who we think should win or will win. And from the conversation, there are definitely some far apart contrasts and some passionate agreements. It was a fantastic, great time over the Talking Smack podcast, so if you're listening and want to hear my take on the 2023 Oscar nominations, you're going to have to exclusively listen on the Talking Smack podcast. It'll be live in the next couple of days. The link will be available in the description of this episode. Make sure you hit subscribe to the Talking Smack podcast so you're notified right away when that episode hits. Now let's hear from the Talking Smack podcast now.
If you love talking blockbuster movies, comic books, animation, and TV shows, check out Talking Smack, hosted by me, Josh Scar, along with my rotating cast of co-hosts. We will talk superheroes, movies, animation, and comics with you every Wednesday on your favorite podcatcher.
Two children wake up in the middle of the night to find that their father is missing, and all the windows and doors in their home have vanished in the new What the Hell Did I Just Watch film, SKINAMARINK. Now, before I get into the review, let's hear from the director of SKINAMARINK, Kyle Edward Ball.
SKINAMARINK is a lo-fi experimental feature horror movie. It's about two very little kids who wake up in the middle of the night to discover that their dad is gone and all the doors and windows in their house have mysteriously vanished. So they go to the living room, get some blankets, put on some cartoons, and chill for a bit. And after a while of being in the house alone, they discover that they may not actually be as alone as they think. I think a lot of horror directors, when they're little, going into their career growing up, we always want to do a big scary house movie. And there's any different ways to interpret that. For example, Ridley Scott, when he did Alien, I think he was doing his big scary house movie in space. Then in my mid-20s, I started a YouTube channel where people would comment nightmares they had and I would recreate them. And a very common trope nightmare that people would comment is a dream people remember from childhood where I'm in my house, I'm alone, and there's a monster and I have to deal with it. And so that, the idea of doing a big scary house movie, other influences ranging from 2001: A Space Odyssey to Kenneth Anger, had kind of fomented in my mind, and that beautiful Frankenstein led into SKINAMARINK.
Now, SKINAMARINK is due to hit the Shudder streaming platform in early February, but those in selected areas got access to a special screening. Now, as the movie came to a close and the house lights went up, the creaking of the seats seemed to all come up at the same exact time. We hear nothing but silence until all of us rose from our seats, and across the nation, we all said in unison, "What in the actual did I just watch?" SKINAMARINK is shot completely in lo-fi or simulated lo-fi, at camera angles shot almost entirely at an angle towards the ceiling or parallel with the floor, to show us just enough to see one's ankles, with the hissing of static always consistent with its shooting during its entire runtime. The lo-fi style can theoretically and concept be cool, and is a unique strategy when it comes to a film that wants to give us a haunted house type of feeling, and a sense of mystery. But again, in theory, the execution is less to be desired, but I'll get to that in just 1 minute. The concept does spark a little bit of an interest and a little bit of fright. Two children wake up in the middle of the night to find out there is no adult figure, and all the doors and windows are missing in the house. The possibilities with this and the lo-fi style tossed into this, the horror seen through the eyes of two children of confusion and the missing of a loved parent. With all these elements, they have every sense of terror the movie can tap into right at their fingertips to truly do something special and unique. SKINAMARINK was directed and written by Kyle Edward Ball, and why there's a writing credit into this is beyond me, and I will add that to the list of I'll get into that in just a second. This is Kyle Edwards Ball's first writing and directing credit. No kidding. SKINAMARINK can be seen as a prime example of what happens when you give alcohol to a couple of film students in middle school to shoot their first movie in a class project. And not just a shot, these kids finish the entire bottle. Now, SKINAMARINK is a movie that opens up a wide range of theories of what the house is, where the kids are, where the parents are, and as a hook, we as an audience are consistently looking for clues to prove our theories correct. The beginning, we think, gives us a good clue where it revolves around the father on the phone explaining an injury to one of the children by falling down the stairs, but the father reassures whoever he's on the phone with that the child is okay. We take this as a starting point to solve what is happening, but the film gives us very little to work with, especially with no real piece of audible dialogue except what director Ball throws to us in a subtitle once in a while, but all the other dialogue you can't understand. As we progress through the movie in a completely dark lo-fi setting, the kids seem unaffected by the loss of any parent, nor any sense of worry or emotion. And these camera shots that continue throughout the movie do not help to engage the audience, but it acts as a distraction. It takes us away from the environment. It doesn't let us see what these children are in. The movie banks a lot on utilizing darkness and using audio to enhance the experience and help support the non-visuals of suspense. And this does work in the first half of the film as mildly successful, but then ends up overstaying its welcome. The movie doesn't utilize any of its visuals for scares except for maybe one scene that came across a little creepy. This one banks on a big stream of silence and then gets you with loud audio noises to give you the artificial sense of scare. And this becomes just to the point of annoyance to the over loud audio to the either pointed up or pointed down camera shots, where as a viewer you start to lose attention because nothing really is happening. The camera is all over the place. Now, once every half hour or so, we do get a bone thrown to us with a lucky, creepy shot that really utilizes the environment and the camera strategy, but this isn't saying much since the movie is only an hour and 40 minutes of an investment of time. Director Ball tends to show an overconfidence that is really overconfident for the lack of dialogue and the strategic camera shots. It's almost like he's trying to become the Revenant of horror films with his style, and it doesn't just fail at it. Hands down the most annoying film I have witnessed in a long, long time. This film has no purpose, no plot, no curiosity coming from its main characters. Ball is more concentrated on the style than involving his characters. If you take out all the random focuses on the walls, toys, this film must have only been about 20 minutes long. Ball wastes so much time on shots versus substance that it goes absolutely nowhere, to the point I don't even have confidence that the filmmakers knew where this film was going, or what they wanted the audience to take away from it. The children do have the same monotone worry throughout the entire runtime, and this might be intentional given what theory you care to take on to believe. I have my own that I went with within the first 45 minutes, and if you're bored after the 45 minutes after thinking you know what this film is about, you're probably right on your guess. Kyle Edward Ball, I don't even think knows what he is trying to prove other than showing off his camera angles, hoping it looks unique enough to get viewers, and to leave the plot so laser thin that it would be up for an interpretation, including himself, that I don't even think he knows what he wanted to make here. SKINAMARINK is an awful shot, horribly written, because there's hardly any dialogue at all. There is nothing of substance in this movie, and those that get sucked into the couple of good shots of creepiness, the overly loud audio, the raised audio to give you jump scares that lead to nothing, more power to you. This film will have a following at some point, but I will be curious how this does on streaming since I struggle to make out anything on the big screen with all the dark tones. SKINAMARINK is due for Shudder here next month. This is one I will not revisit nor care to speak of again. This would have been a great short film by students, but this is a prime example of no vision and stretching a basic concept into something it's not, but a slew of boring camera shots and tone. I'm giving SKINAMARINK 1 star. When her mother disappears on vacation in Colombia with her new boyfriend, June's search for answers is hindered by an international red tape. Stuck thousands of miles away in LA, June uses all the latest technology at her fingertips to try and find her mother before it's too late in the new thriller, Missing.
You need to let the police handle this.
I tried! I'm not giving up on my mom.
Siri, call June.
Mom, this is FaceTime.
Oh, gosh. I need you to write a couple of things down.
Kevin and I are headed to LAX, and we need you to pick us up on Monday. Keep your location on the entire time I'm away.
No fun. Got it.
Who else got a lie? Who else throwing red lie? What else make them egg lie?
Hi, this is Grace Allen. Please leave a message.
Where are you guys?
This is Elijah Park.
Please, I need your help. It's my mom. She's missing. Is there anything you can do?
We don't have jurisdiction to investigate in Colombia.
I'm not giving up on my mom.
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
I'm trying to find someone. I need you to go to this hotel and ask for their security footage.
You're going through Kevin's email?
This woman calls him Darren. You weren't going to tell me my mom was dating a felon?
Answer the questions regarding something we're looking into. Has your mom ever gone by any of their names?
What?
The strangest case I've ever seen.
There may be more than meets the eye.
There are some legit questions.
Hey, Junebug. There's actually a lot I want to talk with you about.
Oh my God, someone's here.
A premise that we have seen before, only from a different point of view, from 2018's Searching, starring John Cho, where Cho has to use technology to find his daughter that's gone missing. Now, Missing is a movie that does separate itself to an extent that can really stand on its own when it utilizes a focus on June, our teenage girl, and the knowledge of technology at her fingertips. Missing stars Storm Reed from A Wrinkle in Time and more recently The Last of Us TV show. As June's mother, Grace played by Nia Long, who goes on a trip with her boyfriend Kevin, played by Ken Leung, to only disappear with a set of clues to suggest foul play. Missing is a balancing act between focusing on June utilizing the technology, working around international red tape, and as she gets deeper down that rabbit hole, the mystery keeps adding more to the plate. And as it adds more to this plate, this is where the film starts to lose itself in its own disappearance of realism and starts to stretch its believability to a razor-thin level. Missing is at its best where we see June utilizing and taking notes on her laptop when she comes across clues or significant times and dates, and allows the audience to take a journey with June as the mystery unfolds. Now, this piece of the movie was really engaging, and this is what really caught my attention, is really going on this journey with June to piece together the mystery along with her. But as we get into the middle of the film, you can almost feel the writers and director Will Merrick and Nicholas D. Johnson didn't know where to go with it. You can really tell they liked the concept of this story, since strangely enough, they both worked as editors on the film Searching. But these two do an admirable job here when it comes to clever ideas, especially with showing examples of how our youth can cleverly use daily technology to even keep up with the FBI. Watching June play detective over the internet is an entertaining element by itself, but she also has to play on her investigation on a budget of money that her mom left for her for strictly emergencies. And with this money, she hires an errand man for hire in Colombia, Javi, played by Joaquin D. Almeida, in which he steals the show with not only his good performance, but it's also a well-written character by Merrick and Johnson. Javi acts as her only connection that's reliable in Colombia and is a beacon of hope to June. With the little screen time that these two share on screen, the urgency of the situation that June is in forces these two to bond quickly and comes across natural and believable. The audience almost gets a sigh of relief whenever we see Javi pick up his phone for June. Now, when it comes to other performances, they are actually pretty forgettable, and this isn't the fault of the cast. The dialogue is very by the book, as if all the characters are in an interrogation and are just told to deliver their lines. The written material is very cardboard, with nothing to give the cast anything really to work with, especially with June, who doesn't really have a moment to really take in the emotion of the situation she is in, or the frustration of all the red tape that she runs into during her investigation. June really starts the movie off as an 18-year-old girl mentality and never really changes that range. It just stays that tone for the entire movie, and it's hard to buy into the threat or danger of the situation when our main character doesn't seem to care. But again, this isn't the fault of Storm Reed. The material doesn't really allow anything emotional in the film. But when it comes to the tone of the movie, I will give credit to this. Missing doesn't play with a lot of change of lighting. It keeps consistent as it should in a movie like this. The environment doesn't change, neither should the lighting. This adds to the consistency of the environment that Merrick and Johnson stay true to, and it helps with the believability. But as we get into the second half of the film, we have been entertained solely on the situation and the investigation process, but this is where the film starts to lose us. It's where it starts to add some twists and turns that feels really far-fetched and tries to overcomplicate itself. The plot starts to go into twists that the audience might lose a little investment because they've already picked their suspect or suspects. And it throws June's timeline and investigation away and just throws into a pile that thinks it pulls a fast one on the audience, but really just comes across as generic and lazy. Missing, for what it's worth, will entertain. It will keep you invested by the mere investigation with the use of technology, and whenever it lags, it brings in its top player, Javi, to bounce the audience back into entertainment and likability. But by the time the credits roll, the payoff is weak and loses credibility of what it wanted to be. It's not a terrible ending. It's not a good ending. It's just an ending that's just there. There is a lot to like in Missing, and it is a good couple hours to kill, but a lot of viewers might feel a little let down by the second half of the movie. I was let down that it tried to be too smart for its own good. It's a worthy attempt at this genre, but I'm going to give it a slightly shy of 3 stars with hesitation. With that said, I'm giving Missing 2.5 stars. It gets so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there's a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. During the pandemic, Parker and her best friend Miri decide to quarantine at the family lake house alone, or so they think in the new horror slasher flick, Sick.
This isn't a vacation, it's a quarantine.
We're the only people around here.
Where's your mask? This isn't a vacation, it's a quarantine.
A quarantine in style.
Are you kidding me?
This is incredible. Sick. And it's all ours. The only neighbor is miles away.
I thought you were spending quarantine alone.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to see you, and quarantine can be fun.
Mary.
Jump in, water's fine. Who is this?
I don't know.
That's creepy, Parker.
Who is that guy?
Just one moment.
Unlock the door! Unlock the door!
You have a mask, don't you? Your mask. What? I can't let you in. It's not safe.
Are you kidding me, lady? Please!
Now available exclusively streaming on Peacock is the new slasher film Sick. Now, it didn't take long for studios to really start pushing out a lot of films that utilize the pandemic as a driver to its story. There have been countless in the last year that we have seen trickle into streaming platforms that studios are going to involve the events of the pandemic and add a fictional piece of imagination to it. What I can appreciate about the level of candidness to this is most of these films tend to use it more as a setting than an actual crutch to support the plot and character motivation. I have had a few conversations with my peers surrounding this topic. The first thing I hear is that they can't believe the studios are milking the pandemic for a buck. Now, I look at it in a different way, even though, yes, I'm sure studios are, but when it comes to the written material from the writers, most of these films were written during the pandemic, and understand some of these pandemic stories are from those that created an idea from what they experienced as a motivation from the pandemic. And if they find creativity in seclusion during the pandemic, then all power to them. Now, I'm sure we will see a lot of original non-pandemic era plots come out too, as these scripts start to see the light of day. But sometimes I have to remind myself that some of these screenwriters base their screenplays on the motivation of what they experience around them. So naturally, we're going to see a lot of these screenplays with a pandemic setting, and I am okay with that as long as the filmmakers use it as not a somatic crutch they lean on to really drive their story, and use it more as a backdrop and a backseat to just set the setting. We have been pretty lucky so far for the most part not to overdo the pandemic usage in film, but now there is a movie that you can probably tell from the title that is a little bit more upfront, in your face, and brazen about what you're about to see. Sick is a pretty basic and recycled plot. Two girls go up on a secluded cabin only in the middle of the pandemic and are being stalked by unknown suspects. With a runtime of only 1 hour and 20 minutes, those of you that know me can kind of predict where my head is at with this, and obviously know that I was super ecstatic at viewing a slasher film that couldn't even push an extra 10 minutes to make it look like it even made an effort to be a full-length movie. Now, Sick was written by the very experienced slasher writer Kevin Williamson that wrote the original Scream, The Faculty, Teaching Mrs. Tingle, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and also a first-time writing credit to the one that assisted Williamson on the 2022 Scream film, Caitlin Crabb. Williamson's writing prime was between 1996 to 2005, where his forte were films that piggybacked off his Scream success and utilized the same concepts in his movies up until 2005, where he wrote the mediocre film starring Christiana Ricci, Curse, which after Curse landed him into the world of TV series. Now he's back with Sick, hoping to repeat the success from 1996, 17 years later. Will we witness a new Scream-like success? Has he learned a few more tricks along the way? The answer is no, he has not. Instead of 1996 Williamson, we got what would have been a continuation of his decrescendo of quality following 2005's Curse. And as he teams up with B-movie and TV director John Hams, he brings us a nostalgic feeling at times from the early 2000s slasher genre, but with little to no mystery to really have us care about what happens. The film stars Gideon Adlon from 2018's comedy Blockers as Parker, and newcomer Bethlehem Million as they go on a getaway during the pandemic to stay at a cabin in the woods. Sick takes no time at all with very little backstory before it takes us to the cabin, and this is where the extra 10 minutes plus could have really helped us give a little bit more build-up and relationship with our characters. As the girls enjoy their stay at the cabin, of course, they are met with a threat, and honestly, there are some really good shots here, but just not supported by a missing intense audio track to heighten the intensity of danger. You can tell that Williamson was so eager to jump back into his slasher roots that he spends no time in attention to detail or exploring a true backstory to really build this danger. And when the chaos and killings actually happen, we are left with just following these characters around that feel like strangers around us as they run around with their heads cut off for most of the runtime. Now, there are some bits and pieces here that do stand out that some of us will be familiar with during the pandemic. There are some good jokes about mask wearing where we see one of the characters bleeding and is obviously severely injured. She flags down the attention of a car driving by, and as the car stops and this character asks for help, the driver is adamant about her putting her mask on, and this is a little funny bit. Now, the film subtly tackles both sides of the spectrum and ideology of the pandemic without taking a dominant on a true side or being political, and it has a neutral narrative. It utilizes this material well. But the biggest problem with Sick is that it rushes itself. It takes shortcuts like folding a piece of paper in half. It does get to point, but it feels like it's missing a middle. This is one of those few most bold pandemic movies out there, and by bold I mean uses the pandemic as a crutch to push the plot and narrative of its messaging, with leaving the characters behind without discovery of who they are. Sick will not bring Williamson back to his glory days, and in fact is one of his most rushed, sloppy pieces of work. It has moments of fun and entertainment, but without substance. The movie plays out like one of those unnamed characters in a slasher film that gets killed among the rest of the characters, and they're just there for a cool kill shot. Sick is that unnamed character among the slasher genre that will play for an okay background noise as you fall asleep, but even if you watch it while you're awake, the next day it will still be forgotten. I'm giving Sick 2 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by leaving me a review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show your respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film. And make sure you support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.